Yo, what's up, fam? With the Callaways.
I'm Pam.
And I'm Derek. And this is
Beating Heart.
No, hearts. It's hard.
Oh.
One more time. Yo, what's up, fam? Thanks again for tuning into our channel.
If this is your first time, go ahead, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
And if you've tuned into our channel before and you have not liked, you have not subscribed, and you haven't hit that notification bell, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Go ahead and do that. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And we really do care about your comments and your questions, so make sure you leave them in the comment section down there. We want to kind of talk to you guys about marriage, God's design. I think a lot of times people tend to think that marriage is something that man created, when in all actuality, marriage was established by God himself.
Yes, God himself. Yes, that's correct. God himself created. Not only did he create it, but he ordained marriages. And it's such a beautiful thing. Like, once you look at it and kind of understand it, marriage is a direct reflection of Christ and his relationship with the church.
Yeah. And so in Genesis chapter 2, God kind of lays out for us his design, his idea for what marriage is. And he starts by actually pulling from man and creating woman. And so when he pulls and he creates this woman, he presents Eve to Adam, and Adam is just like blown away. He's like, God, this is for me. You created her for me. He was like, she fine.
That's my girl.
Yeah. And so he's like, yeah. And so God presented her to him, and his response to her was, this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. And the Bible tells us this, that for this reason, a man leaves his father and his mother, and he is joined together with his wife, and the two become one flesh. And it goes a little further to say this, and that they were both before each other naked and unashamed. And I think that that whole concept is what God wants to get to us in marriage. And so today we want to discuss with you two important keys to marriage God's way. And it's being one flesh and being naked. Naked. Somebody knocking the boots.
Not that type of naked,
Not
but
kind of naked?
yes, naked. Being naked before your spouse.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important part of the growth and the intimacy in marriage. But God he's real serious about us becoming one flesh with each other. And I think a lot of times in marriages we miss the concept because we get so caught in our individuality. And there's nothing wrong with being one with your emotions, your feelings, how you think, and these things. But I think when we allow our individuality to become a mindset, or allow it to give birth to a mindset that says, I'm my own person, I'm my own individual, and my spouse, my husband, my wife, they're their own individual. I think that's where the problem comes in, because what ends up happening is now we're in a marriage that's in total opposition to God's design. Because if we think about it and remember, God's desire is that the two become what? One flesh.
Yeah, and that's pretty good that you say that, because we do have to understand what it means to be one flesh. One flesh is basically saying, it's not saying that you have to lose your identity, but what it's saying is that you and your spouse have now come to a place where y'all are united, by thought, body, and your purpose. And so also with that, building a personal relationship with God, that part. And we gotta remember that when becoming one flesh, it's not just you and your spouse becoming one flesh, but it's you, your spouse, and God becoming one flesh.
Yeah. That is not. I know it's easy to take on that concept, like, hey, the two become one flesh, like it's just me and her. But God is like, no. When I created you, I was a part of you. When I created her, I was a part of her. So when the two become one flesh, it's just not the husband and the wife, but it's the husband, the wife, and God. God was always a part of the design. He's always been a part of the idea and the institution of marriage. And I think that we tend to lose that mindset and go into our marriage trying to make it what we want to be. And not saying that that's a negative to making your marriage your own, because we actually believe that that's part of, you know, the process of developing a successful marriage, but not having your marriage be something where God does not have place in it, where he's not the center. And so, yeah, you definitely have to remember that the one flesh, it's not just you and your husband or you and your wife, but that God is a part of that one flesh. So, just the idea of becoming one flesh sometimes can be, I guess, a little overwhelming, or a lot to handle sometimes, because we're so used to being our own, you know, individuals. We're used to coming in to the relationship or this marriage as a single person. But I like the fact that the idea is for the two to become one flesh, and the becoming speaks of a process. So that process is not something that just happens automatically. It's not something that, you know, happens overnight. Of course, when me and you got married, we said I do at the altar, but at that moment we didn't become one flesh. We became one flesh where God and his institution of marriage was concerned, but we didn't become one flesh where we were now, you know, at that place of intimacy with one another. That was a place that we grew to. That's a place that we're still growing to this day. And I think that can become you know, a lot to handle sometimes when you forget that that's a process, that's not something that just kind of happens. So
yeah, and so it is a process. So even whenever you think about, like we said before, that marriage is a direct reflection of Christ's relationship with us. So even when we think about our relationship with him, when we first got saved, yes, we became one with him instantly. We became a part of his kingdom and everything that he has for us. But it was a process. Like we had to develop a relationship. We had to spend time with him. We had to get to know him, which then drew us into an intimacy part of having a relationship with him, which is also kind of like, you know, marriages. We have to develop that becoming one stage. And so I just love the fact of how everything is tied into how it is with our relationship with Christ. So I did want to point that out. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a process. And for me, I know that wanting to be with her meant for me that it was going to require some things from me. It was going to require dedication. It was going to require sacrifice, a lot of things, so that I could become one with her. I didn't want to be in a marriage or in a relationship where I'm in my own bubble all the time and she's in her own bubble all the time, but that we're able to actually come together and, you know, share those moments. And I think that the key to establishing a marriage or having a marriage where the two are one flesh is the intimacy. I think that intimacy opens the door to becoming one flesh. So I know that intimacy, sometimes when we think of it as men, when we think of intimacy, we think of buckets naked. We thinking like, you know, yeah, it's about to go down. There's always some kind of touching and grabbing and squeezing and cuffing, all that.
But it's none of this. So we're going to help y'all today with the fact of intimacy, and knowing that intimacy is not only a physical thing. Intimacy is also a mental and emotional thing. I know, like for me, if my husband take care of me mentally and emotionally, then I'm more open for the physical, for the physical intimacy. But just say throughout the day he has torn me down mentally, and then it comes to that point where he wants to be intimate physically, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because mentally that area hasn't been taken care of. And so now you want me to go into the physical state, it's not going to happen. And So I think it's very important that we begin to know that whenever we're talking about intimacy, it's not just a physical thing. You can speak to a person's mind and heart and have an intimate moment.
I speak to your mind.
You do. You really do. And let me tell you, this may be too much information, but when he speaks to my mind and to my heart, I mean, it makes the physical intimacy.
Sex. She doing this. Sex.
It brings it to a whole new level. I can say, like, in that area, because throughout our day, like each day, at the end of the day, we always ask each other, how has our day been? What are we feeling? What occurred? And I mean, that right there opens up a line of communication. And I think communication is very important. That kind of helps lead to intimacy. Mm-hmm. But it helps mentally because for one, throughout the day, we're not together 24/7. Right. So we encounter different things. Like, I'm a hairstylist, so I take on a lot mentally from what my clients bring to me. So sometimes my days are hectic, but it feels so good that whenever I get home, I have someone who cares about my mental state, cares about my feelings, cares about what I've been through. And so whenever it gets down to the physical part, we didn't share an awesome moment of releasing. Yeah. That's a form of releasing. Till now, it's like, yes, I want to get to that part, and I can't.
So for men to understand clearly, if you want the key to the panties, if the panties been on lock to you, the key to perhaps unlocking the panties is to leave the physical. Yeah. Is to engage your wife, and sometimes wives, you gotta engage your husband. We ain't just meet. Is meeting your spouse at a place where they're able to release mentally, they're able to release emotionally, and what that kind of does is that sets an atmosphere, or it creates the atmosphere to where the physical can take place. But of course, we don't want to, especially men, because I know we'll work that and we'll say, all right, well, shoot, I'm gonna get me something tonight. So when she come home, I'm gonna ask about her day. I'm gonna try to get into her mind to try to give her some release there. And it's the wrong motive, because now you're actually engaging and meeting her where she is physically, mentally and emotionally, just to get something from her physically. And that's kind of perverted. That's you don't want that. And so your wife or even your husband will be able to sense that, like, you don't really care about how I feel, you don't really care about what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with. You really just trying to make me open myself up so that you can get what you want from me, which is a form of manipulation. And you definitely don't want to do that. And so that's good when it comes to that intimacy and the becoming one flesh. But the Bible also says this, that they were naked before each other and not ashamed. So when it comes to that nakedness, how is that expressed? How would you say,
to be naked before your spouse? I feel like, for me, if I can be naked before you, that means that I can be who I truly am. Mm-hmm. I can be vulnerable before you. I can express my feelings. I can come into a place where I'm not being judged or condemned, but I can be who I am, and that I can stay how I feel and not feel attacked or not heard or not valued. So if I'm coming before you naked, I'm bringing you everything that I am. All of my feelings, all of my emotions, all of my thoughts, I'm bringing that to you, and I'm naked before you. I'm not withholding anything from you. So for me, that's how I feel about being naked before your spouse.
And I think for me, just being able to be naked before you is being able to express myself emotionally, because a lot of times as men, we try to detach ourselves from our emotions because of the masculinity part. And so I think that being naked before you allows me to express how I am or how I feel emotionally as well as mentally without feeling, demasculated by you, by you not thinking that I'm less of a man. So, when you give me that opportunity to, be open and be vulnerable like that without, like you said, feeling judged, that creates that space where I can say, whatever it is that I'm going through, whatever it is that, I might be dealing with, I can feel comfortable enough to release this to her, because, there was a time where, I felt, I didn't know if I could release certain things to you, because I was concerned about, all right, how it's gonna make me look in her eyesight. But, once we, grew in that intimacy and that becoming one flesh, I realized that, I can present, my thoughts and my emotions to her without her looking at me some type of way, making or feeling like I'm weak. And so I think that was, a major part in developing the intimacy in our relationship, because sometimes as men, like I say, we try to put those aspects on the back burner. And I think that it's important for women to make your husband feel and know that it's all right to express his feelings, because sometimes, women say things like, well, why you don't talk? You don't communicate more. I want to know what you're dealing with and all these different things. But if you don't create a space where your husband can feel free to really express himself without you going off or without you, feeling some type of way, then he gonna stay quiet. So, I think that being naked is a good aspect to keep in mind when, cultivating a healthy marriage.
Yeah, and I always got to bring it back to, because we are talking about marriage, God's design. So I have to bring it back to how he created it. Like you said, whenever he said they was naked. That's even like in our relationship with him, we go before him naked. We can be who we are, and we can go to him with no shame, no guilt, and be completely free. It's our safe space.
Yeah.
So, and we can release, our feelings and everything to him, and there's no judgment, there's no condemnation, there's only pure love being released in that moment. So, I love how the way God designed things, and I think it's an awesome thing to create a safe place in your marriage.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's where the growth, I believe that's where the thriving, and that's where that intimacy comes to life, because I know that in this space it's judgment free. I know that in this place, I can be myself, regardless of how goofy that is, how silly that might be, or how deep that might be, because sometimes I get that about being too deep. But for me, it was good when you made the realization mentally, like, what, I'm gonna start being open and receptive to him when he go in those deep moments, not try to just like shut him off, like you're going too deep for me, but actually listening to what I say. So that for me, that helped in creating this.
Yeah, and with the safe place, understanding, if we go back to the one flesh thing, and we said that it's the two people coming together as one, uniting in thought, mind, and purpose. So it goes to say, I have to meet you where you are, at your level of how you think. And so whenever we become one flesh, we also become like each other. We get to know each other. It's almost like you study that person, so you know them so well. So now I think how you think, I talk how you talk. I come accustomed to. So just say, if something was to occur, my mind automatically goes, okay, how would Derek feel about this? How do he think about this situation? We now have unified and become one, so we know the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, because we know each other. We spend time with each other, and so we develop and we grew as one.
And so I think that's good and that's key, because when you spend that time with your spouse and the two of you become one flesh, things about you are going to become similar. You're going to, say the same things, or start even speaking alike, or having certain mannerisms the same. And sometimes people even say that, y'all starting to look alike. And so different things like that, those are just the byproducts of creating that intimacy, becoming one flesh. So just kind of in our final thoughts, one thing that I would want to encourage in your marriage is that you continue to allow that safe space for your spouse to be themselves, where you're not trying to force them to be you, but allow them to be themselves. That'll give them the opportunity to feel free to vent. And I think that that's important in your marriage.
Yes, guys, you have to remember also in your marriage that you have to take care of your spouse mentally and emotionally. That way, it can lead to physical intimacy.
Yeah, which is a plus. And so with that being said, man, we just want to thank you all for just kind of tuning in to our channel once again, man. There's so much that we would like to say and that we would like to share. But we can only do so much within the video time span. So make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so that you can be reminded for our next upload. We still have a lot more to share, a lot more to pour into you guys. And remember to leave comments and questions down below.
And also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at BeatingHeart Marriage Ministry. We post a lot of content on there that's going to help with your marriage. So go ahead and follow us on there. Don't just follow us. Also tag other couples, other married couples, and other people that are considering to be married. Tag them and follow us on Instagram.
Yeah. So till next time, be blessed.